So I want to talk about breathing. Breathing, yes, it is something we have done forever, literally since we were born, but there's a lot more to it than people realize. And I want to speak on many different parts of that for today. So as we talk about breathing, I want to get into our nervous system. And as you probably know, our nervous system has two different sides to it. We have our sympathetic and we have our parasympathetic. Our sympathetic nervous system is our upregulated one. It's our fight or flight, our freeze response. It's basically how can I get myself out of danger, and it jacks you up to a place that's what it can do for you, is I need to be completely focused on survival, nothing else. Our parasympathetic is the other side. It's a rest and digest. It's getting yourself to calm down. Your heightened awareness is just not there because it doesn't need to be there. And we'll get to breathing, but I want to talk a little bit more about how dynamic we can be with our nervous system. So if you think about watching a dog, he'll go from completely passed out cold sleeping to immediately something wakes him up and he sees a squirrel, and literally out cold to full-on sprinting in 3 seconds. And then he'll chase a squirrel, the squirrel leaves, and he saunters back a minute, 2 minutes later, and he's back asleep. Most of us humans now that live in this day and age, if we were to sprint, one, we'd need a long warm-up, we'd need like the right nutrition. It takes a long time to get up, and then after that effort, we can't come down for that for a really long time, which is why most people get into bed at night and they're exhausted. They get in bed, they lie down, and all of a sudden they're like wide awake and can't fall asleep. And it's a super frustrating cycle. So enter some breath work. Now the nice thing with this is breath work and your breath dictates and can help control your nervous system. So you can teach yourself to be calmer in an upregulated state. When you're in a downregulated state, you can teach yourself to become upregulated. And the beautiful thing is learning the different capacities that you can control to have influence over these systems really gives you a lot of power. So, a couple of points. Most of us now live in a place where we're not fearing for our life anymore. Yes, our physiology has evolved from a time where we needed to outrun things that were trying to kill us, and we needed to track down food, but we don't live in that place anymore, which is why road rage is a thing, because people now get into these situations where something small triggers this physiological response that kicks you to 10th gear, and all of a sudden now you're like crazy fired up and you can't come down from that. So using your breath is the fastest way to help control that. So a couple quick points on breathing, and this relates to whether it's just in day-to-day life or for performance in a physical sense. So you always want to make sure that you are breathing through your nose. Your nose is the vessel in which we should be breathing through. Our nose is meant for breathing. Our mouth is meant for eating and talking. That serves many purposes. So when you bring air in through your nose, it helps to, one, clean the air because we have all these hair-like particles within, or actual hair, within our nose that helps to clean that. We don't have that when we breathe through our mouth. We're allowed to get nitric oxide through our nose, which helps, it's a vasodilator, so that helps us actually absorb more of the oxygen we take in. It limits the amount of oxygen we take in, which is actually a good thing, despite it seeming like that might be counterintuitive. And ultimately, that helps us stay downregulated. So breathing through your nose is more of a downregulated deal. So ultimately, the goal is, even in times of stress, to be focused on breathing through your nose. And you might notice you're going to be breathing through your mouth more often. As you breathe through your mouth, that brings you up into a heightened state. To that point, if you look at an animal who doesn't have the influence of technology and getting all these dopamine hits from all these red lights and red dots on your phone and all these inputs that are keeping you in an upregulated state, if they're breathing through their mouth, they're in a time of stress. Either they're extremely hot, or they've been training, working, chasing, sprinting, working really hard, or they're sick. And usually, like most vets, the first thing they'll look at is how the animal is breathing. If they're breathing through their mouth, they know that this is a severe issue. So same thing for us. So first rule is always, anytime you can, breathe through your nose. And people will go to great depths to work on this, and that really makes a significant difference in your life, and to the point where people will, A, set timers on their phone to help remind you to go through your nose. Some people actually will tape, they'll put mouth tape on their mouth, which basically it's a gentle tape. It's not duct tape or anything like that, but it keeps your mouth and your closed while you sleep at night. You have 8 hours of either reinforcing a positive behavior or a negative behavior. Second thing with breathing is you want to be a horizontal breather, not a vertical breather. So what I mean by that is as you take a breath, your stomach should expand forward, your ribs should expand laterally, and you should expand into your lower back. Most people, you say take a big breath, what do? Their shoulders come up, they take this enormous breath, and that's actually called a paradoxal breath. And basically what that means is that's an extremely inefficient way to breathe. Our breathing muscle, the primary mover, is your diaphragm. But as you're doing that, you're getting all these secondary muscles, which are supposed to be saved for times when you are extremely stressed, and basically your diaphragm needs to call on other muscles to help facilitate change and working to the capacity that you need. Not day-to-day life, not while we're sleeping, not while we're sitting at a desk. So being mindful of breathing through your nose, breathing in that capacity, and then understanding the influence you can have over your nervous system. So all the research shows that if you can breathe in longer or excess of 7 seconds on an exhale, that's going to immediately be calming. So when possible, work on elongating your exhales. So to that point, it very well could be where you go in for 3 seconds, out for 6 seconds. As that's comfortable, go in for 4, out for 8, but gradually working on extending that. So those are the 3 big things: breathing through your nose, breathing horizontally, and then being focused on the lengthening of the exhales. Other things you can do as well is you can assess your BOLT score. BOLT score stands for your blood oxygen level test. And essentially what that is it is our way of assessing how well you handle carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is a gas that you expire when you breathe. So you take in oxygen, you blow off carbon dioxide. The blowing off of carbon dioxide is what signals to your brain. It's the buildup within your body that signals to your brainstem, hey, I need to breathe. So your BOLT score is your way of managing how well I can manage my carbon dioxide. So what it is and ideally this is done in the morning, but if you sit on the couch for 5-10 minutes, let yourself get super comfortable and not be a high heart rate, be very down-regulated. And then you're going to take a normal inhale, normal exhale, and then you just hold your breath. At the first first sign of air hunger, we were like, I could take a breath right now. That's when the clock stops. So you start a clock as soon as you finish your exhale, and again, you're not blowing out all your air, you're just a normal exhale. Clock's running, and then from there, as soon as you notice, I need a breath, or you feel a stomach contraction, you want to stop the clock and then take another normal breath. That second breath coming back after your BOLT score test needs to be calm. So if you're like, okay, take my inhale, take my exhale, start my clock, I'm holding, and you're like, okay, that's it, click, stop your clock, and then you have to go, that was way too long. That's not your BOLT score. It needs to be, okay, I take my inhale, I take my exhale, I start my clock, I hold, stop my clock, you don't see anything change, okay? So that is going to be a good representation of where you're at. And that may be, for some people, it may be 5 seconds. 40 seconds is the gold standard. 60 seconds, you are absolutely crushing this. And basically, you can have great influence on that. And you will notice a severe increase in performance the longer your BOLT score gets. So again, a couple points for that. And there's other things that go into this as well. But the big 3 is breathing through your nose, breathing horizontally, and then elongating your exhales, maybe even putting in some breath holding with that. That's going to make a significant difference in managing stress in the outside world, as well as improving your overall performance in whatever it is that you're performing for. So in use, warm up as you get into training, breathing through your nose. You'll notice you can't go as fast. That's okay. In time, you'll be able to go faster. And then in life, when things get stressful, you have a stressful conversation, something with work goes sideways, things just aren't going as planned, and you feel yourself getting heightened, take some take some slow, long breaths, breathing through your nose. And once you hit 3, 4 of those, you're going to normalize your blood oxygen levels. And all of a sudden, what's going to happen is you're going to be able to think much clearer. Give that a shot. Let us know if you have any questions. And this can be applied so many different ways, so we'd love to work through this with you.